Welcome back to the channel, folks, where in today's episode we'll be looking at the Doctrine of Signatures, a long overdue episode which we've made reference to in the 50 Flowers and 50 Days series. In today's episode we shall attempt to give a clear rendition of what the Doctrine of Signatures is, how did it evolve over time, and indeed who was involved, why did it evolve, including examples of ethnobotany, and a history of time of the herbals of the ancients to that of the Renaissance, influenced by the likes of Paracelsus and Jacob Bohme. And we'll also look at where it sits today in terms of a brief insight into homeopathy and medical herbalism, and we'll conclude on a balancing test of exactly where the Doctrine of Signatures sit. We'll begin by comparing the term Doctrine of Signatures, coined by Jacob Bohme, with the term Doctrine of Correspondence, often used interchangeably. The Doctrine of Signatures emphasises the concept that nature provides signs or signatures that indicate the use of plants based on their appearance, a simple example being the resemblance of the walnut to the human brain. The Doctrine of Correspondence, on the other hand, is a much broader term, reflecting the principle that there are relationships and analogies between different elements in nature, and suggests that understanding these connections can lead to insights about healing in the natural world. And perhaps an example of this is in the writing of Culpeper's Herbals, where he makes reference to the astrological signs. So, the principle in a nutshell: God created man, and correspondingly he created plants that resembled the ailment in man or disorder, such as to cure or heal it, and that the cure or therapy was to be found by looking for those clues in the plant to use. Those of you who have watched episodes of the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series will note that we always give a background on the common vernacular name and the Latin binomial. It is here in the common vernacular name that we see the recurring use of the word wort, which is an Old English term meaning plant, root or herb, and it is usually used in plant names that were considered beneficial or medicinal. Likewise, the term officinalis, when used as part of the binomial suffix, usually indicates that the plant has a medicinal or herbal use, and the term is derived from the Latin belonging to an officina, which was a storeroom for medicines. The following picture slides depict a range of works that we filmed during the 2025 season, alongside the corresponding slide depicting their linkage to the Doctrine of Signatures, and they can be stopped at any point should you wish to read them. So it is likely in the early centuries, bridging the gap between the Greeks and the medieval Renaissance, that the Doctrine of Signatures was used as a mnemonic in times when there was no social media, printing presses, books, doctors, least alone people who could read. So it is likely that this form of received wisdom was passed through the generations in an easily assimilated form. The Doctrine of Signatures is not unique to the more obscure plants under our feet, but also apply to our foods, which reveal rich nutritional sources such as the omega fatty acids, the antioxidants, the vitamin C, and numerous other healthy compounds which are often found in green teas. Shortly in this episode we will be looking at the evolution and chronology of herbalism from the ancient Greeks and Romans up to the medieval Renaissance. But first, Here's a few clips from the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series. Here we mentioned in passing the uses of pilewort, hedge woundwort, lungwort and other plants in passing. Okay folks, so the next question that you might want to ask is, why is the common name or vernacular known as pilewort? And the answer to that question comes from beneath the roots, where the tubers resemble figs or piles. So in the case of the Latin name, Ranunculus ficaria reflects those little fig-like tubers under the plant. It also comes from a philosophy known as the Doctrine of Signatures. Now, the Doctrine of Signatures, or Doctrine of Correspondence, was a popular doctrine in Greek times, and it was promoted by people like Dioscorides and Galen, and it was later adopted in the 16th and 15th centuries by somebody called Jacob Bohme. And the essence of the Doctrine of Signatures in a nutshell is that if God created man, he also created plants in a way that reflected the ailments that they could treat. So obviously the tubers of spleenwort or lesser celandine resemble piles, and it followed that it could be used to treat the ailment of piles. Now, the Doctrine of Signatures reflects that throughout botany. There are numerous examples of plants named in that way. I'll just ramble through a few just to fill the video in. We have things like toothwort. We also have St. John's wort. Reason being, it's used to treat the skin, because if you look at the leaves, the hairy leaves of St. John's wort, you will see it has little pores. So we have toothwort, St. John's wort, liverwort, which was used to treat the liver, spleenwort and lungwort, and also hedge woundwort. Hedge woundwort was thought, with its blood red flowers, to resemble a wound, and it followed that the woundworts were then used to staunch or treat wounds. So those are just a few examples of plants within the common vernacular in botany where the term wort is actually used to demonstrate its origin in the Doctrine of Signatures. Where today we've come to look at a plant as part of the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series in the family Lamiaceae, to which today we have found 3 different species. The plant that we are looking at today is known as hedge woundwort or Stachys sylvestris, and also today we find specimens of betony and self-heal, all part of the same family. The other thing to say about the plant is the medieval herbalist John Gerard, from the point of view of medicinal herbalism, advocated it very strongly for the treatment of wounds. And when we get a plant used in this way, the general term that is applied to it is a vulnerary. So the plant was used traditionally in wound healing. The plant itself, feels scabious, naughtia arvensis, or sometimes known as gypsy rose, is a tall plant between 20 and 100 centimetres in height. The name feels scabious comes from the fact that it was actually used to treat scabies, and also during the Middle Ages to treat the wounds of bubonic plague. So, before we embark on a journey of the great botanical works and herbals, we take a quick look at the science of ethnobotany. Put simply, ethnobotany is the study of natural and social sciences and the relationships between humans and plants. Simple as that. Every continent on the globe will have its own distinct flora and therefore ethnobotanical context. So in this brief episode, we dip our toe into looking at the tribal traditions in North America, South America, Africa, Asia and India. In this first slide we look at the indigenous North American Indians and some of the plants that they have become reliant upon, not just for medicines but for dyes and other uses. In the second part of the slide relating to South America, we look at the indigenous Indians of the Amazonian rainforest and the various compounds which they have become to rely upon. Despite many tribes being primitive, they still rely upon the received wisdom for extracting plants with medicinal properties from the forest with a high degree of success. In other continents of the world, such as the plains of Africa, we see the tradition of the San, who are African bushmen or hunters and gatherers, develop an intimate association with the landscape. In many African countries, we see a strong herbal tradition which delivers up to 60% of primary care. Turning to the continent of Asia and China in particular, where there is a deep-rooted and ancient tradition, we can all but pass on the background which would constitute an episode in its own right. Finally, on the Indian subcontinent, there is a whole new practice derived from the Hindu belief known as Ayurveda. Finally, we make mention of the Aboriginal of Australia and the Maori of New Zealand, who also rely on received wisdom passed through the generations in terms of their medicinal and folklore. Meanwhile, we return to the continent of Europe, where we look at the evolution and chronologies through the ages of notable botanists and herbalists. We commence and abridge our journey in time by looking at the contributions of the ancients, ultimately leading to the Renaissance in the understanding of herbal medicine in the 15th and 16th centuries. In the writings of Galen and Hippocrates, we see the first foundations of medicine emerge about 2000 years ago. But the first of our benchmark works begin with Pliny the Elder in 23 and 29 AD. Pliny the Elder was a Roman author, naturalist, scientist, naval and army commander of the early Roman Vespasian Empire. Sadly, Pliny died from toxic gases when Vesuvius erupted, when he embarked on a rescue mission for the Roman governor Rectina when he set sail across the Gulf of Naples to Sabia. Some would say that curiosity got the better of him. Pliny's benchmark contribution was an encyclopedia on natural history, known as Naturalis Historia, which contained a whopping 37 volumes on which a number was devoted to plants and medicinal herbs, which we can see from the following slides. The next and perhaps most enduring ancient is that of Pedanius Dioscorides, who lived between 40 and 90 AD. Dioscorides' extensive and enduring work was known as the Materia Medica, and it did not receive a wider audience because of its locality and the fact that it was written in Latin, and was translated by John Goodyear in the year 1655 into English. Dioscorides is widely acknowledged as the father of pharmacognosy, or the study of crude drugs obtained from plants. We take yet another leap into the medieval period or Middle Ages, where the monastic orders were the keepers of the written word, mindful of the fact that the first printing press only appeared in 1421. Perhaps one of the most enduring presences of that time is Hildegard of Bingam from the Order of St. Benedict, also known as Sibyl of the Rhine, and she was a German Benedictine abbess and polymath who was an active writer, composer, philosopher, mystic and visionary. As a Benedictine visionary in herbal healing, Hildegard provided us with the book Physica, which is an extensive compendium of the natural world's healing properties and causa et curae. Hildegard, for most of her life, resided in the monasteries and convents of Germany, where her knowledge was widely disseminated to the order. We turn our attention now to Paracelsus and the Renaissance. Paracelsus was a Swiss philosopher, theologian and alchemist who lived between 1493 and 1541, and he emphasised the value of observation in combination with received wisdom, and therefore promoted a more objective and empirical method. So, in summary, Paracelsus was widely acknowledged as the father of toxicology. He was a Swiss physician and alchemist known for his revolutionary ideas in medicine during the Renaissance. He pioneered the use of chemicals and minerals in medicine, observed over tradition, and promoted mind-body connection. We turn our attention now to John Gerard, the acclaimed English botanist who lived between 1545 and 1612 and who had a large garden in Holborn in London. John Gerard's contribution came in the form of a 1,484-page illustrated volume known as the Herbal or General History of Plants, gathered by John Gerard, and was first published in 1597. John Gerard's work was widely welcomed by gardeners and horticulturists. The Herbal contains over 800 chapters detailing various plant species, including common names, botanical names, habitats and flowering times, as well as medicinal uses. It includes folklore and practical information about plants, making it accessible to the general public. We turn our attention now to Jacob Bohme, who was a German Christian mystic and theologian who lived between the period of 1575 to 1624. It was Jacob Bohme that popularised the term Doctrine of Signatures in his benchmark work known as the Signature Rerum, or the Signature of All Things. Bohme's work, elsewhere as a Lutheran theologian, often caused controversy. We now look at the work of Nicholas Culpeper, the English botanist, herbalist, physician and astrologer who lived between the period of 1616 and 1664, a name which many may be familiar with. Culpeper's contribution came in the form of a book known as The English Physician, which was published in 1652 and later became known as Culpeper's Herbal, which catalogued numerous herbs and their uses. Culpeper's style also incorporated astrological herbalism. Combining astrology with herbalism suggests the position of the stars and planets influenced the healing properties of the plant. The following slides take a quick look at the general illustrations, the recommendations and the general layout of the book. With books now available in the printed form and more people being able to read or write, botanical knowledge began to become disseminated. We move now to 1931 and the necessities of war, where we look at Maud Grieves, who lived between the period of 1858 and 1941, who might be better known eponymously for her book Mrs. Grieves, A Modern Herbal. Maud Grieves founded the Wynne's Medicinal and Commercial Herb School in Chalfont St Peter, where she grew herbs and harvested them for marketing. Very relevant during the First World War, where embargoes led to a shortage of much needed drugs. Those drugs included henbane, foxglove, deadly nightshade and monk's hood. In the final chapter, we conclude by comparing homeopathy with medicinal herbalism. In the slide which compares and contrasts, we can see that homeopathy is a more recent practice and often regulated in many countries. In a very brief rendition, we reflect how some of these homeopathic and herbal remedies are administered in the solid and liquid forms. Herbs can be administered in the liquid form by way of herbal teas by creating infusions for mild effect. They can also be produced in the form of alcoholic extracts, which are usually stronger than tea, containing 25% ethanol. Extracts can also be liquid or dry, often used in the form of capsules or tablets. Herbs in their solid form can be ground and mixed with water or food in the form of powders. They can also be produced in the form of capsules and tablets, where the dried and powder herb is encapsulated for easy consumption. We turn now to the topical administration of herbs. They can be used as salves and creams made from oil extractions of the herb, applied directly to the skin. Alternatively, essential oils can be sourced and used, which are concentrated plant extracts used for aromatherapy or topical application, often diluted in carrier oils. In all instances, you should only ever use a qualified homeopath or medical herbalist who is qualified to undertake such work, and in all cases you should always seek the advice of a doctor in the light of any potential allergy, ailment or pregnancy. So we conclude on the Doctrine of Signatures. The Doctrine of Signatures is viewed by modern science as a historical concept and a pseudoscience, as it lacks empirical data or proof. However, modern pharmacology has a significant role to catch up in validating or isolating any active plant principle in order to validate potential therapeutic use. Absence of evidence is never evidence of absence. What is your view? Please feel free to leave comments in the description. Well folks, that's all from me on the Doctrine of Signatures. Once again, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I hope you can join me on the next video. If you have liked or enjoyed this video or found it interesting or educational, please like, share and subscribe to help this channel become successful. So, in the words of Maggie, our international symbol of floral beauty, whatever the weather is, go outdoors and enjoy it.